Welcome back, everybody, to This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I am your host, Perry, and with me today is nobody. I am on my own. I am solo. I'm here. It's just me by myself. Eric is in Disney World. He is on vacation with his family. He will be back next week, though, when we record very quickly to get an episode out for you. I am streaming live on twitch.tv/mybourbongamer, though, at the moment. So if you want to check anytime out, how am I saying this? If you want to check me out anytime I'm live on Twitch or when I go live on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, either on youtube.com/This Is My Bourbon Podcast or twitch.tv/mybourbongamer. You can do so. But if I'm ever doing a solo episode, I like to go live on Twitch to record these because it just kind of gets me, in a better headspace so I can see people interacting with me and I'm not feeling too overwhelmed by being on my own. So we're here. We're live. I'm recording. I hope you guys have had a good week. It's good to be back. Hope you enjoyed the archived episode that came out last week, the banked episode that Swan and I recorded all the way back in 2020 before I was even a dad. That's a crazy thing to say out loud, but it's out there now. You got to hear it. You didn't really see it, I guess. But it was an OG episode, as Eric Black, who is in the chat right now on Twitch, said. It felt crazy hearing us talk about the pandemic as it was, happening in real time. Actually going back and listening to that, it was wild. It was crazy. But we're not in the pandemic. We're in 2024. I am about to become a dad again. I have another kid on the way, which is another crazy thing to say. I'm just slightly over 2 months away from that. We are just a little bit over 2 weeks away from Big Ass August, which we are very excited about, which is our Patreon fund drive. It's not really a fund drive. It is fun, though, where we remind you that the best way to support the show is by heading to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast, where you can get a bunch of bonus content and support the show for as little as $1 a month. But for as little as $5 a month, there is bonus content that is over there every single week. That includes a bonus episode that comes out every Monday. I've recorded one of those on my own this week. It was Samply Irresistible, where I drank on some samples that were given to us by listener of the show, Barrel Proof EDC, Max. More on another Max in just a bit. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for that. It's a maxed out week of content here on Tim Bip. And also the pregame chats, which come out before every episode on the Tuesday when the uncut version of the podcast also comes out. You can check out all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. If you have any questions or comments, send them to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can also send, if you have any, kind of correspondence or mail or samples or bottles or whatever that you want us to check out. You can send them to our P.O. Box. It's P.O. Box 22609, Lexington, Kentucky, 40522. That P.O. Box may not be open forever, but it is open right now. If you want to go send stuff to us, it is there. All of our links, all of our, plugs and everything, that is also in the description of the episode. Whether you are listening to it, whether you are watching it on YouTube, that is all in the description below. I think that's all I have to say up top. We normally kick off episodes with Flying Blind, and boy howdy, do I have a Flying Blind this week. Like I said, it's from a somebody. It's from a Max. It's not Barrel Proof EDC Max. This is from our buddy Max, who was at the meetup with us back in May over Memorial Day weekend. This was, I had a little bit of some Barrel Foundation left in my glass that I'm going to finish off real quick. I was drinking on that during the pregame chats. But this little 2 sample set from Max was sent to our P.O. box along with a bottle that I needed back from him, that I accidentally told him that that he could have, and I made a boo-boo, made an oopsie. So today, 2 samples, A and B. I have the results for the blind here says to drink A before B, do A before B. Says it's not Texas whiskey, which I am okay with. If Eric doesn't listen to this, before he gets back, maybe I'll blind him with these as well eventually. But very excited for this, so I'm going to go through A and B, see what's going on here. Got a nice honey amber color to A. Very floral nose. Floral and fruity. Kind of perfumey. Interesting. It's not really striking me as Kentucky necessarily. I'm not saying it's not, but I am just only on the nose here. So we'll see. Cheers, folks. It is that's so interesting. There's a lot of honey up front. It's a little weedy. It's very sweet. It's very, very sweet. A little bit of spice to it, kind of like cracked black pepper towards the back end too. Not a whole lot of barrel influence, probably a little bit grainier. So I would likely say on the younger side. But it's not bad. I really don't mind it. I'm enjoying it. I'm going to take a second sip before I move on to B, though. Second sip brought out more of the grain, for sure. This almost reads to me like it was aged in a small barrel, like White Dog that was aged in a 1 gallon barrel or something like that. Maybe not exactly that, if you know what I mean, but not a full 53 gallon, or even if it were a 53 gallon, maybe not a full 4 years or a higher corn content. Either way, it's very different. It's not your normal 51% corn kind of bourbon, I would say. And we'll move on to sample B. Now this is more in line with what I would be drinking on a regular basis. This has more color that is indicative of what I would imagine to be older, maybe a little bit more barrel proof. It's darker for sure. Smells higher rise, smells just older in general. Oh, I love the nose. Oh, okay. These two are not dissimilar. There is something very... Oh, what is that? There's like a marshmallow... This is a very strange note, but there's like a marshmallow corn note. Why am I so hyper fixated on corn today? This happened a lot during the Patreon stuff that I recorded earlier, but I was really, really hyper fixated on the corn content of everything I was drinking. And for whatever reason, that's where my brain is going today. But there really seems to be it's a marshmallow corn. Why am I going marshmallow corn? That's so bizarre. I need to go back for a second sip. Give me a second. You know what it really is like? It's more like corn pop cereal on the finish. But up front, there's this like chocolate syrup and blueberry thing happening. Not a lot of spice. A little bit of honey. As it's going up into my sinuses, I'm starting to pick up on some like wildflowers or something. It's so interesting, dude. I'm perplexed by whatever this is. I could not for the life of me tell you where this is from, who made this, how old it is. I mean, roughly, I would say it's probably 2 to 4 years old. The first one is likely around 95 proof. The second one, maybe closer to 115 to 125. And the second one's a lot drier, too. The second one might be finished. Might be. I need to find out what these samples are. Max, thank you so much for sending these to us. I'm getting out the Swiss Army, the pocket knife, to cut open the tape. Whoa. A was the Chattanooga 12th Anniversary Founders Blend, and B was the J. Riger IBC group pick, and it's a hazmat. Or it's a J. Riger IBC group pick. I am stunned by that. That I will be very honest with you. I have not had a Chattanooga before today that I have genuinely liked. And this is one of the few. All right, so I'll go through some of the information on the 12th anniversary blend here too. It's 100 proof. It is 12% of their 1816 reserve, 60% it's single barreled 91 or small batch 91. I'm not sure. It just says SB091, and 28% of their Infinity. I think that's their Solera blend. I believe that it was finished in a 53-gallon barrel, non-chill filtered, again 100 proof, finished in 3 separate charred oak barrels. Okay, there we go. 9 to 11 barrels, aged greater than 2 years. So I was not too far off with the aging there. But yeah, I'm again not the biggest fan of Chattanooga. This is truly a good product, though. There is just so much corn that comes through on it. And I want so badly. I want so badly to like more Chattanooga. I think they look so cool. I think that people like deservedly love them. Like it's completely fine. I'm not dunking on them by saying I don't like them. It's just my palate for whatever reason. And I typically like higher malt bourbons, higher malt whiskeys. For whatever reason, they just don't mesh with me. And in this case, even though it is a little bit cornier, I do think that the 12th anniversary blend works quite well, oddly enough. This is J. Rieger. I really don't know. I'm going to try to look this up a little bit, but I don't know if I have ever had J. Rieger. Rieger. They're out of Kansas City, Missouri. I don't think I've ever had anything from J. Rieger. I don't know the proof on this. All Max said was that it was hazmat. I don't know if it was bourbon. I don't know if it was just whiskey. Either way, it's pretty daggone good, man. Anyway, I should probably just finish off the hazmat, and that way I can move on, because I mean, it's at least 140 proof, right? That's worrisome. I mean, not if you're well prepared. I was not, because I didn't know I was going to be having hazmat whiskey today. But here we are. Okay, then. Well, I guess it does kind of drink hazmat the more you think about it. Regardless, though, that was Flying Blind. As far as what I've been drinking recently, I did my live stream the other night on YouTube and Twitch. I reviewed the new 15 Stars Triple Cask 2 Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, finished in cognac, rum, and apple brandy casks. Very, very good bourbon, even though it is $180. I do wish it was a little bit cheaper, but I do think this is a very, very good bourbon. Go check out that review if you haven't done so already. It was a fun live stream, too. It was the first one I did in like a month because I'd been gone for so long. Been revisiting some of the Heaven Hill Grain to Glass releases as well. The only one I haven't had, and maybe I'll do that right now. It's all the way over there. Never mind. Was the 107 proof bourbon. But I did a little hangout last night with some of the guys from the YouTube channel Razzle, whom I've talked about before, and it was a lot of fun. We were on their Discord and watched X-Men Origins Wolverine. It was a fun Friday night hangout, and just had some drinks and watched a real bad movie and drank through some of that, and also enjoyed one of my bottles that I took on vacation the previous week. The week before we put out the episode where Swan was, well, that I put out the banked episode during, but it was a new riff pick from Liquor Barn. It's called Crazy Sometimes. 4 years and 3 months, 110.7 proof. It was sitting next to a 109 proof pick, and I was more interested in this pick because of what they had, like you read new riff picks, they have the tasting notes on the side sometimes, and this one did. And the picks side by side had the exact same tasting notes, except on the palate. And the palate had, for both, cinnamon and cherry. But on the 110 proof bottle, they had subtle mint as well. I was like, well, I got to know what cinnamon, cherry, and subtle mint are. So I picked this up. It was incredibly good. I've still got enough left in it that I'm going to enjoy. But absolutely fantastic. On top of that, I mean, not much else. I took a Knob Creek single barrel on the trip as well, called No Sharp Edges, also from Liquor Barn. That was 10 years, 9 months. It's awesome to see that we're getting these higher aged Knob Creek picks again. I'm looking forward to picking up another one of those once I finish this one, which I definitely will be doing. And I'm excited to see what Eric thinks about that once he is back. But otherwise, one of the things that I was kind of talking about on my live stream the other night, and I figured I'd talk about it on the podcast proper as well, is that when I'm home by myself, a lot of people think, oh, that's your time to like really party and like let loose. And like for me, it's not. And, I do whatever you want to, but I don't have anybody else here. I don't know if I really said this earlier. I talked about it off and on throughout the Patreon stuff that I recorded and being live on Twitch and everything. But I've been home by myself this week. Lucy and Eden are still in South Carolina with her family for a trip. And so I've been at the house by myself. And so during that time, to me, I don't want to like drink a whole lot. And I'm not really drinking a whole lot anyway, these days as it is. But that all being said, like, I don't want to have so much that there's nobody to be around if something were to happen to me. And so the greatest form of self-care in this instance is preventative self-care, I suppose. And so I have to just I had to be careful. And so like most of, what I've been drinking recently is like talking about the stuff I did while I was on vacation the week prior, which, there was a cocktail I had that was really good. All things in moderation. Absolutely, Eric. This is Eric Black in the chat, not Eric Smith, the whiskey mutant. But Lucy and I went out one night while we were in South Carolina. We went to a restaurant called Longboard, and there was a cocktail that I had called the Smoke Signal, and it was it had a cinnamon stick in it that had been lit on fire and everything, but it was a blend of bourbon and mezcal. And I'd had this cocktail before, and I'd kind of forgotten about it. But, oh my goodness gracious, it was delicious. I had a couple of them. Incredible. I already love mezcal, and I would never really think about putting bourbon and mezcal together. But it was somehow smoky and refreshing at the same time. And I think it was the fruit that was also in the drink itself. But either way, I very much enjoyed it. And I am hoping to try to recreate it myself sometime at home. But it was fantastic. And this is a fun story from when we were at Longboard as well. I haven't told this story yet. I didn't tell it on the live stream. I wanted to save it for the podcast. Lucy and I were sitting at dinner. I had to make I dropped her off. As you all know, she is 6, almost 7 months pregnant at this point. She'll be 7 months pregnant in a couple of days. Goodness gracious. And it's South Carolina. It's hot. And parking is sparse where we were. And I wanted to drop her off and then I would go find parking. Right. So I did, and I had to take a couple laps around the block to go find parking. I finally did. I had to pay for parking. I didn't want to pay for parking. I hate paying for parking, especially in a place where there's, ample free parking, but the free parking is usually allocated for restaurants that have, cordoned it off for themselves. Drives me crazy. Anyway, so I get into the restaurant, and Lucy has she sat down facing the back wall, right? And there's a family at the booth behind us, and it's husband and wife, their 2 kids, and they've got presumably like a nanny with them, right? Kids are kind of loud, and so I am back to back with the husband, and Lucy and I are talking. We're just enjoying our time, enjoying our appetizer, and kids are like getting a little bit louder, and you could tell that like the parents were feeling a little bit apprehensive about the fact that their kids were being loud. And to the point where like they didn't even finish their dinner. It wasn't bothering me. Like I have a kid. She's, 3, she'll be 4 in October. Like she can be a little bit loud, especially if she's tired and fussy. And I'm like, it is what it is, man. Like I got to let it go. So the dad gets up. He's kind of tall. I'm like, that's weird. The dad turns his head. I see his profile. I look. I recognize him immediately. I look at him, and I only catch him. Remember, I've been sitting back to back with him the entire time. I look at him, and I look at Lucy. I look back and forth a couple of times. He's left the restaurant at that point. The mom is still kind of like lingering behind a little bit. I look at Lucy and I go, and she's like, what is happening? I go, that was Patrick Carney, the drummer from the Black Keys. One of my favorite bands of all time. And their drummer was sitting behind us at a restaurant. And I had no idea. Now, to make things even crazier, if you don't know who his wife is, if you don't know who Patrick Carney's wife is, and I didn't know this, I didn't remember this until I got online just to confirm that this was him. Okay? Just to confirm that I was sitting behind the drummer for one of my favorite bands of all time. I get on my phone. I go, Patrick Carney wife on Google. His wife is friggin' Michelle Branch. Michelle Branch! I was losing my mind that Michelle Branch and Patrick Carney were sitting at the restaurant behind me, or at the bar, in the booth at the restaurant that I was in, right behind me. I lost my mind over it. Anyway, didn't even finish their food. I was talking to, so our waitress was the same waitress who was waiting on Pat and Michelle. And I didn't know the best way to approach it. And so like I pulled up his Instagram and he had a picture just of himself. And I showed her a picture and I was like, I just need to ask you this real quick. This is the guy who was behind us, right? And she goes, yeah, it was Patrick Carney, the drummer from the Black Keys. I was like, that's what I thought. She was like, I didn't know. My manager told me. we can't, when we have celebrities in, we can't be like, oh, you're Patrick Harney, blah, 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 blah. We can't ask for a picture or anything. And I was like, that's understandable. Like, I get it. She was like, yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, I had Dale Earnhardt Jr. in. I couldn't say anything about it. And she was like, not that I'm a huge like racing fan or anything, but my dad was, and I couldn't help but think about my dad, and he would have been so excited and everything. So anyway, I was beside myself that I was sitting next to, and here's how big of a fan I am of the Black Keys. You might not know this. You probably don't know this. When my first like real band that I played shows that I got paid for with, right, was a Black Keys cover band. Like the band that I first had a hand in organizing. It wasn't just like, oh, we're in middle school and we're just trying to like play together and, just, blah, 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 blah. Understand how to play in a band together. The first band that I had gigs for where I made money on was a Black Keys cover band. That's how much this band means to me. And the fact that the drummer from the Black Keys sitting back to back with me, and I had no idea until he was leaving, and it was too late for me to say anything. I mean, I would have felt it would have been weird. It would have been weird to like bother him with his kids, But I would have at least been able. I wanted to be like, hey, hey, I'm a big fan, Thanks for all you've done. You've been a big part of my life for almost 20 years now, Anyway. All right, y'all, we are going to move on to the review for the episode. I've been kind of teasing this over the past couple of weeks, but I've been needing to do a review on the newest batch of Bulleit Barrel Strength. This is batch 8. It is 121.8 proof. No age statement, of course. As you can see, I've been drinking on it, and we'll get into why I've been drinking on it in a moment, but I will be very honest with you. I've not been drinking on it because I've enjoyed it. I've been drinking on it because it's there. I've been drinking on it because I was curious about it, and I wanted to pick it up as a kind of a higher proof offering going into vacation, and it was kind of serving the same purpose that something like Benchmark Full Proof might serve. That it's not really satisfying your craving for a flavorful, big, enjoyable bourbon, but at the very least, it's there. It's not the oldest. It's not the most complex, but it's something. And I kind of hate to qualify it as just something, but it really does feel like just something right now. And I'll get more into it here in a minute. But it at no point during this, and I know as you can see if you're watching the video version, that yes, it is 3/4 of the way, 2/3 of the way gone. I it's kind of just barrel proof bourbon. We'll talk more about it in a minute. We'll get there. Eric's saying Bulleit is not an awesome bottle, but can be fair daily. It's a good mixer and versatile in many cocktails, and I think the 10-year is better at lower proof. I don't disagree with that. I do think that the 10-year is actually quite good. I've heard a lot of praise for the 12-year rye, which I haven't had yet. I would like to pick up a bottle eventually, or at least try it, but I just haven't had the opportunity to yet. So it's a light to decent nose, I would say. There is a lot of alcohol. There is some kind of stone fruit in there as well. A little bit of cinnamon, a hint of caramel, but overall, I mean, it's pretty bare bones for being a 121.8 proof bourbon. It's had plenty of time to open up. It's had plenty of time to breathe. If you're concerned with, it being a neck pour, it's not. As I said, it's 2/3 of the way gone. I'm not the only person that's had this too. I shared it with my sister. I shared it with my dad. I wanted them to kind of get confirmation as well that I wasn't, biased or anything, that I wasn't going crazy. And they kind of confirmed with me too that there was something not necessarily off, but just maybe missing from it. And that's kind of how I feel with this. There's a Christmas spice that's in there too. Does that make sense? A Christmas spice? Anyway, let's dive into the palate. It's oily. It's got a good mouthfeel. There's honey, there's vanilla, there's caramel. It's very bright. It's not overly complex. I mean, it's not blowing me away in the way that past Bulleit Barrel Strength releases have. When I got married, it was back in 2016. So long ago, I know. I got married back in 2016. I was a Bulleit drinker. That was my daily drinker. And my wife, my day of the wedding gift was a bottle of Bulleit Barrel Strength. I don't have that bottle anymore. These days I would have held on to it. I should have held on to it. And maybe I'm, biased just by time. Maybe it's, retroactively feeling like the good old days. That's how it should be now. I don't know. But all that's to be said, that what I remember from that bottle, and I've had other Bulleit Barrel Strength releases as well since then. Specifically remember having batch 4, batch 5, and I think even batch 7. And those being even maybe at what I would argue to be a younger age. Because quite frankly, I can't imagine that this is older than 4 or 5 years old. Maybe 6. Those bourbons being quite a bit more flavorful and enjoyable than what this is. There is even still a bitterness to this on the finish that, while is not unenjoyable, would be potentially somewhat difficult to get past for a lot of bourbon drinkers, especially if you are dipping your toes into the barrel proof, barrel strength, cask strength, foolproof world of bourbon. That's not to say that Bulleit is doing a disservice to bourbon drinkers, new bourbon drinkers who are seeking out barrel strength products in general. I don't think that that's a fair assumption at all. But I don't think that this is the right approach in many forms. This is all just to say that for the marketing, for the innovation, quote unquote, for the way that Bulleit presents themselves, I want to see more. I do. At this point in my whiskey drinking journey, I think that there is more that could be and should be expected from a company that is following. And I don't think that this is anything that is off base or is, I don't know, controversial. But to say that they are a company who is following the Four Roses distilling or production model, they've got 2 mash bills and they've got 5 different yeast strains. You go to their distillery, you go and do their tour. They literally show that to you. That's there. I'm not saying that they can recreate everything expertly, but they've been doing this for long enough. They didn't start 10 years ago. They didn't start 12 years ago, 15, 20. This product does not showcase what Bulleit can do. We all know that. I'm not going to give this a full nose, palate, finish, and price review. I just don't think that's fair, because this is not, to me, what they are fully capable of. I'm ready for batch 9, and then we'll talk about it. I can't believe I'm saying that. I can't believe that I'm in the moment making that decision. I don't think I've ever done that before. But batch 8 is one of the more disappointing bourbons that I've ever had. Maybe it's because they're trying to reserve this older stock for their 10-year releases. I think some of that older stock should go into this barrel proof stuff, barrel strength releases. Personally, that's me. Anyway, I wanted to like this more. I really did. I've spent so much time with it that I can't get past it for what it is. But that's what I'm supposed to do, though. I'm supposed to be honest about the whiskey that I'm drinking, about the whiskey that I'm reviewing. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's my job with the podcast, though. I don't have any high proof hot takes this week. I do have tips and bits, though. It's our segment of the show where we recommend things that we have been watching, listening to, reading, just enjoying recently that we want to recommend for you as well. Watched a movie last night. that I have been meaning to get around to for a while, and I finally got around to it. It is Late Night with the Devil. The Devil. David Dastmalchian. His first leading role after being just kind of a side actor for so long. It was an Australian production that is absolutely incredible. It's a horror movie that is centered around a 1970s talk show, a late night talk show. Loved it. It feels like an A24 movie. It's not. It's all kind of low budget horror. Bunch of different little horror production companies that just make it really, really exceptional. I enjoyed it immensely. Childish Gambino has a new album out as well. It's not just a new album. It is his last album as well. Donald Glover's last album under the Childish Gambino moniker. It is Bando Stone in the New World. There we go. I wanted to get it right before I said it. Bando Stone in the New World. It's essentially the soundtrack to a movie that will be coming out soon as well. I was trying to find out when the movie was coming out earlier today while I was listening to it and reading, enjoying my morning coffee, and I couldn't find a release date for it just yet. But it is absolutely fantastic, and if you've listened to the show before, you know that we are big fans of Childish Gambino here. And we are also big fans of letting you know that if you want to support the show, you can do so by heading to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. For as little as $5 a month, there's bonus content that is over there that you get every single week. Every Monday, there's a bonus episode. Every Tuesday, there are the pregame chats and the uncut version of the podcast as well, which every now and then, if I am solo, I guess I'm going to stream these live on twitch.tv/mybourbongamer. So not only do you get that uncut version, you get the uncut video version as well over on Twitch. So all sorts of good stuff. It's kind of like early access to the podcast as well, if you go watch it on Twitch. The video will go private on Twitch after today. Or, yeah, something like that. I don't know. I haven't made up my mind. I was just kind of saying that out loud. Check out all of our apparel and merchandise at bourbonshop.threadless.com. You can send us questions or comments to thisismybourbonshop@gmail.com. You can check us out on social media. I am at PRaider1792 everywhere. Eric is at Whiskey Mutant, and you can follow the show at My Bourbon Pod. You can leave us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app of choice. You can send your voicemail or text to 859-428-8253 for our Barrel Ring segment that we are doing every now and then when we kind of feel like it. And you can also just tell your friends. Let them know about the show. It's that easy. That's how we grow. That's how other people find out about us. And I think that is it. We will see you next week. Eric will be back for that, for episode 341. Until then, though, I'm Perry, and this is My Bourbon Podcast.